All right, with that, hey guys, I'm really excited to be here to be able to talk to you about this subject matter. It's pretty dear to my heart. If you've ever been burned by a scammer, this kind of information is something that I wish more people would know about. Now that being said, though, is that this is not supposed to be a presentation to scare everyone or anything. It's just about to make sure that we are all better educated so that we can see the signs in case it happens to us, or we can help that friend when it happens to them. Now, granted, the scams that are happening on Amazon are increasing in rate. There are a lot of, printing presses, maybe people with a lack of morals, foreign companies that are using loopholes in Amazon to take advantage of us writers. And in this presentation, we're really going to be looking at how we can identify these scams, as well as how to protect yourself and what to do if you fall victim to it. I also would love it for everybody here to share the information as much as possible, because what you're going to find out is time is of the essence. And the longer it takes for you to realize what the situation is, as well as what's coming, is going to be a very important step to reducing the amount of damage and losses that you as an author can receive. So the way that this presentation is going to be structured is that we're going to start by some of the big scams that are out there. And I'm going to teach you about exactly what that is and what it looks like. And then I'm going to give you a case study of how somebody fell to this, to give you that context, that story of what it looks like. And then finally, we're going to talk about how we can tackle it. After we've gone through these particular large exams, then we're going to talk about the issue as a whole, okay? Now, if anybody has any questions, I'm going to be very diligent to make sure I get through this presentation in a succinct amount of time, and I'm going to make sure that we have enough time to be able to ask questions. So I'm going to ask everybody in the crowd to wait until the questions, and I will address those. Okay? So the first scam that we have here is mass-producing FBA books for best-selling books. Okay? So what this is that foreign printing presses, and I'm going to say foreign because it's really important to keep the cost incredibly low, and based off of what we've seen, usually it's a printing press in another country that can do this at cost, that can create versions of a book for pennies, okay? And what they do is they scour the internet and they look for books that are making great sales. And it's not just a spike in sales, it's consistent. They also want to make sure that it's not backed by a big publisher, because the publishing companies run into this so often that they're very quick to respond. So the printing presses know that if they can find an author who doesn't have that and hasn't seen this presentation and doesn't know what to look for, they can get a lot more money for longer until finally Amazon shuts it down. So if they can find a book that's making consistent sales and not backed by a publisher, what they do is they buy the book. And they use like OCR technology, which is where basically it sees the words and it converts them into a Word file. And they put it through their printing presses, and they mass produce a large amount of your book. And then what they do is they send it in to FBA, which stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. Okay? And this is where they take your books and they ship it into Amazon stores, and they say, hey, when somebody goes to buy it, go ahead and sell this book. It's there. Physically. You don't have to print it. It's right there. Now, what really stinks about this and why they can get away with it is that when they ship it into Amazon, they list it as brand new. It's not used. It's not touched. It's brand new. So what happens is that when a shopper goes to Amazon and they go and they click on your print book, Amazon's going to offer them this one instead of the one that you're selling because it's brand new. And they're going to list that book just a little cheaper than yours. So if your print book is, say, $15.99, they're going to offer it for $14.99 at brand new, which means that everyone on Amazon that goes to buy your print book, they'll think they're buying it from you, but they're going to end up buying it from this FBA account. So when that happens, every one of your physical books, the money is going into their account, not yours. And this sucks, because the problem is that Amazon will tell you that everyone has the right to resell your book. So say, for example, I buy your book, and I decide to put it back on the market, sell it. Usually, the good person will list it as used or, whatever the other conditions are, but not brand new. And of course, people can choose to buy used, but they have to click a button to do that. But because this is FBA and it's sent in as brand new, all of those books will sell before your book sells. Okay? So the problem here is that they're finding opportunities to mass produce, say, like 500 or 1,000 copies. They make them for like maybe pennies. They ship it into Amazon in one shipment, and next thing you know, it's stock, and it has to clear. But this causes a lot of problems for the author, not just the loss of money, because they do a really bad job of printing. And it's going to look terrible. You're going to get stuff like this, which is an example of a book that was ripped off. You're going to get finds where there's going to be problems with the margins, bleed off, blurry, because, we're talking pennies for the book. And what's even worse is that the people who buy it have no idea that they just bought it from a scam. So they're going to go to the reviews and they're going to leave negative reviews. And this is just going to destroy you, because all of a sudden everybody's saying, can't read the book, this is terrible. They might send it in for a refund, maybe, but the review stays. So it's just kind of this trickle effect. An example of this exact thing, which, by the way, this poor author, it happens to him multiple times a year. His name's Ryan Kleckner, and Ryan Kleckner wrote what is probably one of the greatest books on long-range shooting. By the way, any authors out here that ever write a fiction and they want to cover, snipers or how to get in position, and they actually want to use good terminology and great structure, that's a phenomenal book to read. But it's also been a best-selling book for 6 years and then some. So clearly, this book makes continuous sales. And it's consistently a bestseller, and it's self-published by Mr. Kleckner himself. However, though, all of a sudden, he'll realize that his Amazon bestseller rank still stays awesome, just like it should. But he'll go into his KDP account, and he'll see there's no book sales. Maybe one, where it was 30 or 40 a day. And all of a sudden, it's just gone. So, of course, realizing that his physical book sales are all of a sudden dropped and ebook sales are fine, and the Amazon bestseller rank hasn't changed, he'll contact Amazon. And he'll say, hey, guys, what's going on here? My Amazon bestseller rank is good to go, but I'm not making any sales. How is this? Amazon will say, well, you can't use the Amazon bestseller rank to tell us what's going on in the market. And so they'll fight. And so he goes back and forth, back and forth. So finally, for Mr. Kleckner, the first time this happened, because he didn't understand this, he started looking and he realized, you guys are selling another book. So he contacts Amazon. Hey, Amazon, you can't do that. This is my book. Amazon responds back, Mr. Kleckner, everyone has a right to resell your book. This is clearly somebody who is reselling your book, and that's okay. Mr. Kleckner responds back, but Amazon, hold the phone here. They're not just selling one book, they're selling multiple. How is that? Mr. Kleckner, it's not a problem. They're doing something, they can do this, this is fine, this is allowed. Now, at this point, it's been over a month, and all of his sales are going into this account. So, he decides to do the next step. He buys the book. Sure enough, clearly sees it's looking exactly like we see up here. Now, it's not his book, but it will be something egregious. And by the way, in time, his reviews continue to reflect that poor print. So he sends pictures. And then he says to Amazon, you are selling an illegal copy. This is copyright infringement, and I will sue. Then Amazon says, oh, interesting. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and freeze their account. You would think this is cool, right? Okay, great. Freeze his account, or this foreign company's account, and let's go ahead and put the money back to where it goes. I'm sorry, Mr. Kleckner, but we at Amazon, we're not in the business of putting money in from one account to another. So in the end, this foreign account ended up getting 2 months' worth of his sales, sold all their copies. And then on the third month, when they finally closed it down, all that money that this other account had accrued, Amazon can't move it. It's stuck. It stays in Amazon. And so Mr. Kleckner's response to Amazon was, how do I get my money? I'm sorry, Mr. Kleckner, but since we're not in the business of doing that, the only way you get us to move that money is to sue us, and we don't recommend doing that. So Mr. Kleckner at this point has lost over $40,000. He ended up losing, $30,000. This was in the first one. Takes 3 months to clear up. The printing press earned 2 months' worth, and Amazon kept the third. He received multiple negative reviews from customers claiming poor formatting and quality. Amazon did not remove those reviews no matter what he asked, even though they admitted that it was fake copies they were selling and that the reviews technically should not be attached to his book because it wasn't his book. Too bad. And the issue has happened multiple times over the past couple years. Now, I was kind of hoping, and just jokingly, I was hoping that this presentation would be in the Bali room where KDP was in the back, because then I'd be like, hey, Amazon, pay attention to this one. This one's for you. But truth be told is that this is happening at an alarming rate, and it's happening more often, okay? So that's one of the first scams. And by the way, like I said, we're going to go through a couple of the big ones, okay? The ones that are happening at alarming rates that they're getting away with that we authors need to keep our eye on. And then after the case studies, we're then going to go over what we can do about it, okay? So not all is lost. But that's scam number one. The next one is pre-selling books to test if worthy of scams. So this one's good because, generally speaking, they're not making any money. But just note that somebody's fishing. They're looking, okay? So here's how this scam works. Scammers locate new books, okay? More importantly, these are usually in the high-priced area, and they're populated topics, okay? So, like, for example, textbooks, maybe you have coloring books, maybe you have something that is generally a higher price ticket, okay? Now, for the scammer, they don't know if you're popular. They don't know if you're going to make money. They don't know if you're going to make sales. But they're going to go ahead and mark that they are reselling the product as used with a lower price. Now, what's funny is, and the reason why we know this is a scam is because at this point, said author has not made a sale at all. There is no way you can resell the book because the book's never been bought. It doesn't exist. So what they're doing is they're testing to see if there's a hungry market for it. So in this case, if your book takes off, clearly they're going to start making sales. And when they start making sales, they're going to take their time they're going to buy your book, of course, do the OCR like we talked about, mass produce, and ship individually, not through fulfillment by Amazon, but ship individually and start taking over. So one important thing about this is that when you go to publish your book, if you know for a fact you haven't made those sales or that it's impossible that somebody bought your print book, received it, turned around, shipped it back into Amazon, right? So like maybe 1 or 2 days after your launch and you see that, note that somebody's fishing. Somebody's looking to see if you're worthy of the next step in the scam. Next is place their book on your sales page. This is probably the biggest one to watch out. This is the one that's happening more frequently. In the first one, we talked about somebody who has major long-term consistent sales, okay? And the second one is just fishing to see if you're, I hate to put it this way, but like worthy of their scam, if you know what I mean. But this third one is the one that I think is kind of the cherry on top. So this scam, how this works, is that scammers find books that don't have a version. Like it's a missing version. Like maybe you only created a print version. Or maybe you are enrolled in KU, so you don't have your book on other markets. Or maybe you don't have a hardcover. They're just looking for where there's an opening, okay? And then they make the cover and title the same, but use different insides and change the author name, usually by one letter. So they notice your book, they see it, they make everything the same except for the inside, and then they're going to work to get Amazon to attach it to your sales page. Which this one is kind of like one of those, out of all of it, this is the easiest for Amazon to fix, but they won't. So how the scam works, apologize for my animation here, all right? This is a case study for Scott Harshevitz, who is a University of Michigan professor, okay? And he's written a bunch of books that kind of center on philosophy and children and raising kids. He does a phenomenal job with them. They're actually really cool books. But he started noticing he got an email from a reader that said, hey, the formatting of this book was terrible. And 2 weeks later, he got another one. He's like, wait, what's going on here? Okay. So then he decides to go ahead and check his sales page on Amazon. And immediately he notices that his Kindle is at $15.99. Everything looks fine. No problem. This is exactly what he expected. Then he clicks on the hardcover, though. And he notices that when he clicks to select his hardcover, his Kindle price changed to $9.99. So if you're on the book or you're on the Kindle, you see all the right things. But the moment you click on the hardcover, it's attached to a different ebook. And when he looks at that, he notices that when you're selected on the Kindle, the $9.99 version, his name has an extra R. So you can see it up, let's see. See it there? He has less copy. So the book description is different. And it's not the same book. The look inside is not correct. So the result was that the scam had gone on for months. He had no idea. That Penguin, his publisher, reached out to Amazon, and they took it down since through a publisher, Scott doesn't know how much was lost. But clearly there were many sales because he had many reviews reflecting the poor quality of their formatting. Luckily, though, he had a publisher that stepped in and made that quick. So in this particular case, they saw that under his hardcover, he didn't attach a Kindle version. So they took his cover, changed his name, made a different inside, and attached it, and then contacted Amazon to do so. Now, the bummer part about this tactic is that because the author name is off by one letter, it doesn't show up in your author page. So if you go to your author page, you won't see that book listed. So we've covered three of the biggest ones, and there are a lot of other smaller ones out there. There are a couple of tiny changes, but what we're going to talk about on how authors can protect themselves will protect you from some of these others as well. Okay, but these are the three biggest ones where scammers are really taking advantage of authors and gaining a lot of revenue off of our hard work. So what can we do? Well, first off, we need to just monitor our sales page. Okay. Fact of the matter is every one of these scams has changed something on the page itself. That's either they've listed a book for brand new, and notice when they do that, it's a different price. You can also do a check to see, just Google your title, or Amazon search your title. And if you start to see a book with the same title and the same cover, look a little bit closer. Make sure that it's not a mistake on Amazon. Check the author name. See if there is a extra R or an S or, a dash. That's a fun one. Ensure nothing else is different, okay? When you click between your books, did the sales copy, did the book description change? Is there any information? Did all of a sudden your editorial reviews go away? All right. Another thing, too, is, though, to look for your author page. In case the person didn't change the author name and they kept it the same, and they've attached where you have an opening, you'll be able to see that book show up in your author page as well. So when you're looking at your author page and you know you have 3 books and it's showing 4, click on that 4th one. See what's going on there. We talked about searching your title. It's really important to see what other versions. One of the ones that I didn't cover is foreign rights. Okay. Sometimes companies will go through and they will take your book and they will start selling it in Japan, or they'll start selling it in another country. They translated it of some sort, right? They make the mistake, though, of having it enter into the U.S. market as well. So if you can search the title, sometimes you'll see the foreign rights stolen. Okay. And the biggest thing, though, is about time. So the sooner you can recognize that this is happening, the sooner you can get the process going. Now, I hate to say this. I really, really do. But Amazon, I'm going to say it bluntly, they suck at really jumping on this. And I kind of get it. I understand. From their business perspective, they're already making money. So if you buy the fake version, they still got money. It's not hurting their bottom line. The second thing is they don't want to get involved in litigation or copyright wars or anything like that, right? It's so long as they're covered, there's no emergency for them. So legally, they're fine. Financially, nothing's changed. And they can't automate this. So what ends up happening is that we as authors, we need to immediately recognize when this happens and start the process of contacting them. What really stinks, though, is there is no one process. There's not one page you can go to, one spot, no contact, nothing like that. You need to find ways to communicate it as soon as you can. But one thing I will say is that if, say, for example, somebody's reselling your book and it's not your book, that's the quickest way to get them to say, oh, okay, we need to take action. So if you do purchase said fake book and you send them an image showing that it is not the same book, that is one of the things that I've seen from all the communications that gets them to immediately respond, okay? Because they can't deny that this is a copyright infringement, and that they'll respond to, not this person's taken my sales, okay? So one of the things that really stem from this is how do we monitor, right? The problem is that no author wants to have to check their sales page every day, multiple times, to verify, right? And at the same time, too, it's, we need to get to the next book. We need to get to our marketing. One of the things that I created just recently is a free plugin to help monitor these things. So if you guys want to, you can go to Reader Scout. It's a Chrome plugin. It's free. And then what you do is you go to your books and you tell it, hey, monitor these. And then what it will do is it will check to see if your price changes. And it will check to see when you get new reviews. And it will let you know right there in your Chrome. So, for example, if the scammer lists a brand new version of your book, all of a sudden your book price will change. And so Reader Scout will then notify you and say, hey, heads up, your price is different. Okay? And by the way, sometimes that can be a good thing. As some of you have probably experienced, there's been times where Amazon will actually lower the price of your book, but you'll still get paid at what you're due. The problem is they don't tell you that, which sucks because it's like, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity to email my readers and say, hey, did you know that my book is 99 cents right now? You can get it, and by the way, you still get your same rate for what it was before. So it will help to notify if it's a good thing, or it might let you know there's a bad thing. As for reviews, it's just something that will let you know when reviews are coming in. That's another sign like we talked about. If you start to see a review of somebody claiming that they had a poor print or bad formatting or, something nefarious like that, you can immediately jump on that and see something's up or somebody is selling the wrong versions of my book. And if you do, you can also jump on that QR code. And like I said, it's absolutely free. Let it monitor your books, help you out with that, and then that way you shouldn't run into these problems, or at least you've quickened the pace, right? You'll be notified the day it changes instead of finding out about it 2 weeks later. And like I said, a difference of 14 days could be the difference of an entire month of royalties for that particular book. So it's not so much that I'm trying to push doom and gloom because it really just sucks, but it's what it really comes down to is just knowing these things exist, knowing that Amazon has these loopholes, knowing that there are nefarious actors out there that are taking advantage of it, okay? And at the same time, too, as you guys now know this, when you are on a Facebook group or something and you hear somebody talking about that or somebody's questioning about it, you can use this information to help them so that they can get after those scammers better. My take on this is the sooner we jump on it, the sooner the scammers realize it's not a profitable venture. Because if we can stop them on month one, they get nothing. That means they spent all this money to produce these books and ship them in, but then we stopped it before they could even get their first paycheck. You may lose that first month, but they got nothing except for a bill for printing and shipping, which I love. I know it sucks that we didn't get a royalty, but take that. If we do that well enough and we do that often enough, they're going to stop. There's no money in it. So my biggest hope is that we get the information out there so that we can stop the scam by that, because we can't depend on Amazon to do it. Like I said, there's no reason for them to really change their system, and that really sucks. They're not making less money because they're still making sales. They're not held liable because they're covered. They're not going to add more stuff to their already bloated company in order to improve the system because it doesn't come down to their bottom line. So really, it's about knowing that it exists, catching it as soon as possible, and then taking action as soon as possible. And the more that know this, the harder it will be for scammers to make this profitable and make more money. So one of the things that's been a problem, though, that I wanted to cover in this also is what to do if Amazon shuts down your account. This ties into the scams because one of the things that we have noticed is that as the scams have increased in rate, we've also seen, too, that Amazon has started to create automated systems that shut down accounts, which I'm happy they're doing that, but it's also causing real accounts to be shut down without any discussion, okay? So when it comes to your account being shut down, there's two different types. There's suspension versus termination, okay? Now, a suspension of your account is where basically Amazon sees that you've had, usually it's like you're not new. You've had books before. You've proven that you've been a good character for a while, but they saw something. And so they're flagging it, and they're saying, hey, just a heads up, but this might be a little, this might be something bad. If that's the case, and you get that, it's important that you immediately respond, okay? You respond by taking action. If there's something that maybe is correct, then fix it. Or if not, then respond back and let them know, this is my book, this is my copyright, I did not steal this, and if you did a copyright, send a copyright in, right? But take those actions immediately. Termination, on the other hand, is where Amazon just flat out just shut down your account, straight up. And they'll do this because either A, your new account, you don't have a background on that, okay, so there's no good character history or anything like that, or to them, it's incredibly egregious, whatever the violation is, okay, then they will just immediately terminate it. And termination is a lot harder to get around. But if you do find yourself into this, and again, like I said, I feel like the terminations are happening more often because Amazon's just trying to nail these in just this response, okay? I don't feel like they want to put the human capital to actually put human opinion into this. I think they're using automation. Sometimes we are getting caught in the crosshairs. So if you do run into this spot, okay, steps to reinstatement. Like we said, take immediate action. Do not let it sit. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to tell everyone, you need to make sure that the email that's set in your KDP account is something you actually get on your phone or on your computer. I've had a couple of authors who do not have that email because it's their, quote-unquote publishing email on their phone. They go on vacation and come back to find out that Amazon had been contacting them about a suspension, turned it into a termination because they didn't hear back. So check to verify your KDP account is an email that you use to read on both, okay? 2, keep trying Amazon support. It's funny. If you've been a part of any of my presentations before, I like to call them the Amazon humans. The Amazon humans are hilarious because you'll fill out like a category form. It's a page on Amazon where you can change categories and you can put in all the information, and you'll get the one human that comes back and says, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to change categories. It's like I'm on your category form. I found that interacting with some of the humans, you get some that are very brand new to their job, maybe not good at their job, and then you get some that actually know what's going on. Generally speaking, when you contact Amazon, they're going to do a lot, especially the ones that don't know what's going on. They will just copy and paste some, response that they think they found, that they think maybe answers it, and it has nothing to do. So just repeat. You do not get the same human unless you've gone to a whole new level. You just keep getting the next one. So keep churning through there until you finally get one that actually is good at their job or knows what's going on, okay? And by the way, that's a great recommendation for all communications with Amazon, okay? The Amazon humans. 3, I know it's really frustrating, and I know that, you're losing money, someone's stealing from you, and Amazon sends you a robotic response. Try to stay polite. Not because I want to save them, no, but work, like if you come in, if you're that Amazon human and you see the responses, Maybe you just sent response and you finally got a good Amazon human, and that human reads that you're calling them, a jackwagon and blah, 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 and et cetera. Rest in peace, Lee Ermey. They're probably not going to help you. And I know that it's like, but you've dealt with so many problems, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 emails. And then you finally let it out, and it goes on the wrong person. So just remember, you're probably speaking to a new person every time. They do not know the history. They do not know the amount of frustration. Try to stay polite. Not for their benefit, for your benefit. If you did make a mistake, admit it. They see these things, and they're so much better to work with someone who says, wow, I did not know. This could be a violation of KU, okay? Say, for example, your book is under Kindle Unlimited, and you're also selling your book on your website. You didn't know that. Just admit, I did not know that. I've taken care of it. I've taken action. It is gone. That won't happen again. That goes a lot longer than you think. That really works better with the Amazon humans, just knowing that you accept it. And like I kind of followed on in that example, offer a solution. I took care of it. Not a problem. Will never happen again. It's kind of like, I hate to put it this way, but it's kind of like, my middle daughter is that real smart one, where she's like, when she's in trouble, she knows exactly how to like respond to dad. Dad, not a problem. Not going to happen again. I've already corrected it. Shouldn't be. Nope. We're good. And I'm like, child. Taught you a little bit too much. No, that was natural. That child is natural. But the point, though, is that it's kind of like that. Like, I can't punish you. You got it. Okay, cool. It's all solved. Then great. Moving on to the next support email. That's exactly it. Admit your mistake. Offer a solution. Or if it's not your mistake, offer something. Just being angry or just kind of getting out of emotion, just saying, hey, look, it's kind of like we say call to actions at the end of your book description, which, by the way, I'm giving that the presentation on Thursday on how to craft the perfect Amazon sales page. Definitely recommend coming to that. We're going to be talking about call to actions, and believe me, it increases the conversion rates just by reminding somebody of the action you want them to take. So at the end of the email, it's a really good move to say, in conclusion, please restore the account by this, and I will make sure that such and such happens. It sounds very resolute. It ends it. Sometimes we can describe things so much that nobody really remembers what they're supposed to do, so just state it. It's a great method. If, say, for example, you're still hosed, okay, you're still not getting through, you did not cause any problems, they've automatically shut down your account, everything is frozen, you can talk to the Alliance of Independent Authors. This organization has been really good at getting at Amazon, especially if it's a bigger issue. They're a phenomenal resource. You may find stories or more information or context of other authors like you that ran into your particular situation. If still nothing is done, that's when you get a lawyer, okay? Especially if you have an account where it's absolutely financially worth going after hard, okay? They will, when you get a lawyer involved, Amazon all of a sudden gets the right human involved as well. So now I would say that if you have a friend that's a lawyer, that might be good because then you can help them. Like, you don't have to pay the full thing. But when they see legal is attached to it, they're not going to automate it, and they're not going to use one of the Amazon humans to respond. You're going to get the one that can actually make calls, and then we'll actually look into it, and it's a really good shot, okay? Now, if all of that still doesn't work and your account stays shut down, you have another option, okay? You can create a new business. What I mean by that is a lot of people don't know this, but your Amazon account, we have an individual account. And if your individual account gets banned, then you cannot start another account no matter what. Even if you're in a different address, you have different credit card, cell phone, nothing. However, though, at that point, it's probably a good option to set up an LLC, which then gets an EIN number and allows you to open up another account, okay? So you can use that. If you're out personally, set up your own account, set up your own LLC. They're pretty simple. There are also some online virtual businesses that you can set up that gives you an EIN, and then you can get your books back on. You can, it's one of those things where you might want to change the book a little bit. so that doesn't trigger that, wait a second, this is a book from a flagged account. But then again, under Amazon, you could just state that you sold your rights to this publishing company, and the publishing company is now publishing it. So that is one way to really get around the situation if you've gone all the way down and you can't do it. Second option, not as great, but you can build your own audience and marketplace. There's a lot of great plugins that are coming into play that allow you to sell your books on your website. And finally, basically say, "Foo you, Amazon, I'm going wide, I'm not touching you." And then you can focus on that. So it's not like all your sales are gone per se, but it definitely means that you need to start looking at how to market better on Barnes & Noble, Kobo, iTunes. And if you're looking at doing that, there's a great Facebook group out there called Wide for the Win that would be phenomenal to jump in. They talk about how they can expand their sales in other markets, and that would be the next option. All right, with that, we've ended with 8 minutes left so that we can take on some questions. Yep. Oh. It's kind of hard to clap for such a doom and gloom conversation. It's like, right. Yes, and my understanding is we have a microphone right there, so if you have a question, come on up to the microphone. That way, not only everyone here can hear it, but also those that are streaming and listening.
Hey, thanks for the talk and everything. Does having your own ISBN, your own purchased ISBN, rather than using the Amazon ones, help you at all in this situation? Lessen the chances? Yeah. And if they ban your account and ban your book, but you've got your own ISBN, is that going to have an impact?
Theoretically, it should. But I've also seen examples of books that have been scammed, or also even accounts being banned with ones that absolutely have an ISBN that did that. So theoretically, it should be. But from the examples I've seen, it hasn't stopped it. Probably the best way I can answer that question. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about what you said in the end with the if you are just permanently terminated, what your options are. And you mentioned creating your own marketplace. I was just curious, with your industry experience, something I've been hearing about more and more in my author circles is direct sales and creating your own marketplace with Kickstarter and Patreon. Are you seeing a trend where that is becoming more and more successful with authors as an alternative?
So I believe that and again, this is almost on a different subject, right? But for authors that really want to make, we'll say, more than 5 books, I believe that your best trajectory for true growth and revenue is where you start to take action to ensure you own your market. That is things like having your own email list, like truly working the email list. That's about, having followers on your social media. Now, granted, I get social media is another platform that you could always lose, some of the names out there or whatever. But what that allows you to do is to build up so that instead of selling your book on Amazon where they're taking their cut, right, or have control over you, is that you can then sell it directly, or like you said, Kickstarter, but then you can drive that market to purchase it. A lot of authors, once they've really built up their following, they're making more money by selling on their own site. And because they can make the book $2 cheaper. So great, buy it from me, you save some money, but the author still makes more money because Amazon's not getting that cut, right? And so that gives you more power, it gives you better revenue, it gives you strength, and you're less vulnerable. So I believe that that is a very long-term kind of strategy for an author growth. That being said, if, say, you're new, it's kind of hard because you don't have the email list, you don't have that following, but work to grow it because it means even more down the road. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Super.
So my question is, are Cliff Note versions of your books and blanked line journals, are those legals or are they scams?
Can you say that one more time?
So I write nonfiction, I write self-help books, and there are probably 4 Cliff Note versions of my books out and several blanked line notebooks using the title, but the cover is completely different. And they'll say Cliff Note version of book title, author's name right in the description.
So first off, I'm going to say congratulations. It's sort of like What was that famous phrase? Copying is like the greatest form of flattery. So take it as that. That being said, so clearly your book has done so well that people have found that some way to kind of attach to it is making the money. It's a double-edged sword there, right? I'm not a lawyer, so I can't directly answer that. And please don't take anything I say as a response to this as legal advice or financial advice. Instead, seek a lawyer. Been in this game long enough to know when that needs to come in play. That being said is that from what I understand is they have that right to be able to do that because they've changed the works enough. That being said, there doesn't mean that there aren't ways that you can make it hard on them. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. I believe that it is correct that they can do it, but yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, are there any, yes, one more.
I have a friend whose account was terminated 2 weeks ago, and Mark Cohen helped her get it back. But her complaint was that her books were public domain because one of the free-to-read download sites had downloaded 25,000 copies of her book, and Amazon had found it. So I'm wondering if she can't find any contact information to send a cease and desist letter to them or
So-
get a lawyer involved. So how do you locate those companies?
That's a great question, and this brings into something that I'm going to roll through because I got 2 minutes and 44 seconds. So first and foremost, Google ebook piracy. I've got an article that talks about the steps to take somebody down, but the last step is one of my favorites where if you can't get the court systems to take it down, get Google to make them go away. Okay, Google has this DMCA takedown form that you can fill out that basically says these guys are, pirating, and then Google makes it so the website is even harder to find, or if there's enough of it, that they'll just make it de-index from Google. Now, granted, if you go to like Safari or Internet Explorer, you might be able to find it, but Google says we're not showing that anymore. That's one way to stick them. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, with public domains, this is something that I kind of wrote about before as well. Public domains are awesome, and they're terrible. For those of you who don't know, books that have lost their copyright because it's been too long, they become a part of the public domain. Authors on Amazon have the right to take said public domain and format it. Okay, so you can put it in a formatting software, make it look good. Amazon has certain rules, though. You need to change enough. You either put images in the book, you write an intro, an outro, something like that. You've changed it enough to make it your own. You do all those things and you were compliant with Amazon, and you submit it to Amazon. You can start making those sales. Here's the problem, though. There's one other, I wouldn't say a scam, I almost call it bullying, if you will, so it didn't make it into the slide. But there will be somebody who did the same public domain, and they don't like that, and then they will file copyright infringement. And when they do that, Amazon's very quick on that one. They have a form that you can fill out where you go put in and say, this is copyright infringement. They immediately take down your book. They'll maybe even lock your account, okay? And then they're like, you need to figure it out. So then you have to go to this person legally. Now, there's like, for example, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, clearly outside of copyright. The book, #1 book that ranks for that does this where anybody who does a Marcus Aurelius's meditation, they'll immediately copyright infringement claim on you, even though there's no way, and you're legal, but what they're hoping to do is you just run away. Now they got one less book on there, and they're the only book you can buy, which they have like 1,000 reviews, and they're clearly making enough money. The other thing, too, is there's a chance that they're foreign, which means that if you try to fight legally, you have nowhere to go. You can't, they're just not going to respond, and Amazon does nothing about it. So that being said is that there are a lot of those in public domain where they will just wrongfully claim copyright infringement, and so that's another thing somebody could run into. I know you or your friend didn't run into that, but those two things right there are big with public domain. And with that, that's all I've got. I will be in the back after this outside. If anybody has more questions or so, I'll be there to answer anything. So thank you.